All right, well, I'm actually doing kind of an intro for the first part anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of soft start as people kind of keep coming into the presentation. So as you can see, it's a little bit different. You know, the sign outside kind of gave you an idea of what this presentation will be about, what the actual title is. Enhancing homeless, and it's not always homeless social services, not even just always social service organizations, but honestly, any kind of organization I'm hoping can benefit what we're going to cover today. But it's how we can leverage data quality, visualization, and AI for improved efficiency and sustainability. And I have notes in all of these slides, and I'm actually going to be talking about this a little bit later too, but these are also on the website. They're on, of course, the conference website, and they're on my professional website, which is gaither9.com/FCEH, and that's all uppercase at the end. But I'll try to slide that later. Any kind of questions you have, by the way, I want this to be pretty open, so I like lots of questions, and feel free to stop me at any point. I will stop at each section to allow questions to come in, but you're kind of like, what are you saying? I didn't really hear you, you were being too fast. Feel free to slow me down, ask me questions, keep me on track. And I'm one of those people, it's like I like to give accurate answers if I can, so I may give you I may not give you the answer you want right away. I may not give you a full answer, I'll tell you that, and I'll say, I would like to think about this, and I'll get back to you later. But I'm one of those people that I don't like giving a pat answer. I would rather give you an intelligent answer later than a wrong answer now. But I do love questions, and I love discussion, because while hopefully everybody here is here to learn, I'm also here to learn as well. So I find that just by interacting with people, I learn more than I ever came up here to talk about in the first place. So it's a great situation for me too, just everybody knows. So look at that, spare no expense. Thank you. Yeah, man, I tell you click a button, it pops it in. It's like it's so much work, but I did it for you. So thank you all for joining me today, and a special thanks to the Florida Coalition and Homelessness for inviting me back. I've been here before, and I'm here again. The FCEH is a pillar of positive change, and I highly recommend that if you're not a member yet, you seriously consider joining to support their crucial mission to collaboratively prevent and end homelessness in Florida through advocacy and education. So I understand we all have tasks looming in the background, so if you need to attend to other work while you're here, please go right ahead. Time is a valuable resource, and I respect that. Lastly, questions are always welcome, as I mentioned before, so don't hesitate to chime in at any point during the presentation, and let's make this an interactive and enlightening session for all. So, I have notes on each of my slides, and I'll kind of fill in with my own commentary. So I came to a lot of these conferences when I was a data analyst and chief technology officer, and I always had so much work, that I had, whether email or someone bugging me or whatever. And I honestly was like, I loved it when I had a room like this because there were tables I could bring my laptop to, and also at the same time, I'm like, I wish I couldn't bring my laptop, but I would, and I would work, and that doesn't bother me at all. So if people have work to do, feel free to do it. I understand we're all wearing like 15 hats, so I think it's completely fine to step out for a bathroom break or drink or whatever, just because you can't hear me talk anymore. I'm all right with that too. Everybody just take care of yourself, and I'm very much about self-care. So, welcome everyone. I started with talking about a bit about me, but it starts out a lot about me, and you'll see why. It's a lot about how I've had challenges that I've had to overcome. So, I've transitioned from a 20-year radio career into data analytics and social services. That's a pretty big jump, a very interesting jump. But a lot of people I tend to talk to do that. They either go from private to public and public to private, back and forth. I think it's because a lot of us have a passion for this, and once we get sucked in, we kind of tend to stay here, which, good or bad, is what it is. I'm hoping I can provide some maybe information and some context and tools that make it easier for all of us, hopefully. So I've served as a data analyst for the Charlotte County Homeless Coalition, and as the Chief Technology Officer for the Gulf Coast Partnership Continuum Care. I am currently the CEO of my own data dashboard company, focusing on homelessness and aiding social service organizations. But I've also come full circle, and I'm serving on the board of the Charlotte County Homeless Coalition, where I leverage my expertise in marketing and data analytics to help organizations fulfill its mission to to combat homelessness and hunger in our community. So I'm one of those people, I like to kind of talk about where I've been in my experience, because honestly, I'm hoping somebody will pick up on it and go, oh, I'd like to talk to you about that. Because I love talking about the things that we're working on. And so if you kind of find something that you hear me talk about that piques your interest, or you want to know more about it, or you want to share stories with me about it, feel free, because I think that stuff's a lot of fun. So, as I mentioned earlier, for those of you who aren't here yet, because I started kind of on time, but I like people to slowly be able to trickle in. I meticulously added speaking notes to each slide, which I'm definitely not reading right now, but which you can also access later for a deeper dive into the material. They'll be available after the session on my website at gaitherdyn.com. That's GAITHRDYN.com. And it's / all capital letters, FCEH. And of course, the materials on the conference website as well. You can also consider the presentation, or the presentation on kind of the director's tab, because you can also get some interesting notes that I put in there for myself, just to kind of, I don't know, keep me going, or I don't know, suppose it just makes me laugh. I didn't say it, but the first slide told me I was a Batman. So, I think it's funny. You may not, but the notes are there if you want them to check them out on the website. Okay, so today's presentation is structured around critical phases of my life, each offering valuable lessons for achieving long-term success. So you kick off with the groundwork of grit, where I reveal how overcoming early life complexities laid the foundation for my problem-solving skills. I apply different professional settings. Up next is From Waves to Wisdom, lessons from the radio diamond, emphasizing the importance of getting the fundamentals right in a dynamic and stressful field. I think we all maybe can relate to that. Following that, we venture into On the Front Lines, innovations in social service, highlighting the power of data integrity and process efficiency, particularly when resources are limited. So I hope people are kind of picking up on some of these key words that maybe we're all familiar with. Limited resources being pretty important to, I think, all of us. Then we're going to shift gears to data, dashboards, and decisions, oh my, where we explore cutting-edge data visualization techniques, and finally we'll explore AI-driven efficiency, the future of organizational excellence, to demonstrate how artificial intelligence can streamline operations without burning through budgets. Running through each section is a unified thread, the paramount importance of understanding challenges, meticulous monitoring, and continual refinements for long-lasting success. So many organizations I work with are on fire, and they say they don't have the time to get better or to avoid the fires. But the only thing you're going to do is eventually have the entire building burn down with it, and it's just there's no good solutions to lots of fires when you're just letting them burn randomly. So my goal is kind of give you some tools and some ideas that it's better to make some of those big lists when you can. Because if you've got 10 fires going on, it's impossible to do something. But it's a little bit easier with 9 fires, a little bit easier with 8 fires, a little bit with 7, 6. So maybe you don't tackle all the fires at once, but maybe you tackle a bigger fire, or maybe a smaller fire. Whatever your strategy may be, you need a strategy. And I will be taking constant drinks of my water. Again, feel free to get your own drinks and refreshments as needed. I go through a lot of water. So we're going to start by delving into the hurdles and intricacies of my early years. These experiences were formative, laying the groundwork for a systematic way of learning and approaching challenges. This foundational period has deeply influenced my perspectives and methodologies, setting the stage for effective problem solving in diverse professional environments. So let's begin this journey by uncovering who I am and the invaluable insights that I am to share with you today. And also, if you can't hear me or I need to speak up or get slower, let me know. I like to be as accommodating as possible. So, Albert Einstein once said, once we accept our limits, we go beyond them. Understanding our limitations doesn't mean we're settling for them. Rather, it provides a clear starting point for growth. By acknowledging what holds us back, we can devise specific strategies to go beyond those barriers. Limits are not the end, they are merely waypoints on the journey to improvement. There have been many times in my life when I have maybe failed or I didn't perform up to a certain thing, or maybe I didn't want to do something because I had an excuse. I had a good reason why I didn't do it. I had an injury, or I had a disability, or I had whatever it might be. I could tick off any number of boxes that would allow me, maybe personally, to opt out of whatever that thing might be. However, I would never accomplish that thing. So it's a choice. I can settle on an excuse and I can use that as something that has given me a reason not to do something. Or I can look at that excuse and I can say, wow, what is it about this that's actually stopping me? And can I conquer that excuse and still do the thing? So the excuse doesn't become a giant wall that I can't, climb over. It becomes a speed bump, or maybe hopefully a speed bump I can step over. But it might be something I have to deconstruct a little bit. Or if it is a mountain, then maybe I need to buy climbing equipment. So I really try not to just stop on something and go, well, I can't go any further. I try to go, really, is it me that's part of the problem? Is there something else I can do? Can I think about this? So sometimes, like I was saying earlier, you might ask me a question, and it might be insurmountable for me. I may not have an answer to that question right away, but I can go learn, and I can go ask questions, and I can build supports, and I can understand that topic until I can come back and have a good answer for you. So that's how I tend to operate. I do a lot of preparation ahead of time because I know how much extra work I'm going to have to do, and you'll start to see where I'm coming from in a few minutes. So here's a snapshot from the winter of 1980 near the Delaware County Fairgrounds in Muncie, Indiana. If you haven't heard about Muncie, Indiana, that's fine. Not many people have. So that's me on the left, smiling like I just discovered the secret to life at age 5. I had not. Beside me are two great friends, one's now a librarian and the other's a drummer. And these friendships have had a profound influence on my life, from instilling me a love of not just reading, but honestly, research and the gathering of knowledge. And also it's inspired me to my own drumming journey. So I now play the drums, and it's something that it's kind of funny. I really was not a very good drummer for about 35 years, which is a long time to be bad at something. But people are very polite, and they, you're doing good, you're doing okay. And it's like, you really, and it's like, they encourage you like you're 5. Like, oh, you should keep practicing more though. Okay, I get that hint. And then I started thinking about it, and I really started thinking about a lot of the things that I'll talk about today. And I really started thinking, I need to apply these things to my own life. I shouldn't just be here talking about it, or I shouldn't just be here doing it in my professional life. These things actually work in my personal life. And as a preview of what we're going to be talking about, what I started doing with karaoke and with drumming is I started videotaping myself. And it's funny, I'll put them on Facebook, and I think people think I put these videos on Facebook because I want to show how good I am at it, which is hilarious, because if you watch me, I'm not good. I'm not maybe good enough, I'm okay, I've improved. But part of it has been by not just recording these videos, but by watching them. And I have a lot of friends that will record videos of themselves and they'll put them on the internet, but they don't watch their own videos. Because I don't watch them to go, hey, look how great this was. I watch the videos to go, this is how I am. Because sometimes I'll get on stage and I'll walk off and I'll think, I killed that. And I'll watch the video and go, I did not kill that. I was not, whoever I'm trying to say, that was not Dave Matthews, that was not Adele, that was not whoever, it was not Lizzo. I love the songs, I'm not the artist. And the same thing with drumming. I'll watch a drumming video of myself and I'll realize I'm not as good as I was, or I thought I was maybe when I was in the moment and I was really feeling good. But the other thing I learned too is I'm not as bad as I thought I was. I'll find some areas I'll watch it myself and I'll go, that wasn't bad, that was okay. I'm not saying I'm David Grohl or I'm amazing, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And it gives me areas to focus on to get better, because there are some areas I'm worse, and I can target that, I can get better at that. And then other areas that I know are pretty decent. And so if there's someone watching me, I can go, when they're watching me, maybe I'll do that part, because that's a little more fun, and I can do that pretty well. So self-monitoring has been a very powerful tool for me, not just professionally, but also personally. So, 8 ADHD and ASD, so attention deficit hyperactive disorder and autism spectrum disorder. So revealing that I possess traits associated with ADHD and ASD isn't a simple footnote in my biography. It's pivotal for grasping the lens through which I navigate both personal and professional landscapes. Icons like livestock system innovator Temple Grandin and acclaimed actor Sir Anthony Hopkins share similar neurodiverse profiles, exemplifying how unique cognitive structures can drive exceptional accomplishments. Einstein. There's a lot of historical figures that were never diagnosed as being on the spectrum or being neurodivergent, or some people say neurospicy, but there are a lot of, it's like 1 in 50 people are neurodivergent. So a lot of historical figures we're figuring out now through, just common sense and kind of reading through their stuff, that a lot of people are neurodiverse. It's just, we do something called masking. I don't know if you know what that is, but people that are used to be called highly functioning, or sometimes used to be called Asperger's way back in the day. We don't use that term anymore, but we tend to mask. So basically, something that I might do that might be related to autism, I've learned to kind of suppress that, and I don't necessarily do it in public. So maybe stimming, or there's lots of different things that are associated with it that have to do with masking. So a lot of people either never find out that they were neurodivergent, or they may find out, like me, later in life, which is always a fun time, sarcastically said. So only recently diagnosed, I reframed these traits as the backbone supporting my specialized abilities. To operate at what society calls a baseline, I am hyper-focused on organization, vigilance, and systematization, skills that ultimately propel me to exceed typical performance levels. One thing that's very important to me, it's so funny because being autistic, there's a lot of contradictions, because I can appear very intelligent, and then sometimes I'll do things that are very seemingly unintelligent. A lot of times if I'm forced to do something under pressure, I can, but I tend to shut down. I tend to be like, okay, I can only do this one thing. Like I used to think I could multitask. I cannot multitask. I can do one specialized thing really well, pause, or the next specialized thing really well. Now, that might be a 14-hour session that I work on that thing. And then I move to the next thing for 12 hours. I might sleep, but I have to focus, and it gives the appearance of being like good at a lot of things, but I'm like good at that one thing for a while, good at that one thing for a while, good at that one thing for a while. So understanding that allows me to explain to my colleagues and people in my personal life how I am. And while it's not an excuse, remember, I don't like to use excuses. It helps them understand me, and it helps me understand my place with them. And it's just generally, I find the transparency and the authenticity to really just dial everything down to make things easier for everybody. But if I didn't know I had these problems, I've masked up until now. But I'll tell you what, honestly, the progress I've made in the 2 or 3 years since I've known about the issues I've had, have been some of the greatest progresses in my life I've had, at least personally, mentally, and just really kind of having a purpose in my life. And like yesterday, I was in Brian Postlewaite's presentation. He talked a lot about, we know what we do, but we don't a lot of times know why we do. And that's something that's been coming more into focus in my life lately, is that why? Because I'm understanding myself better, that's kind of gotten me to this place, and now I'm ready to move forward more. But coming to this place out of ignorance has made my life way more difficult than if I would have had this information and maybe learn more about myself early on. So, but it's never too late, and you should never be hard on yourself. It's never too late to start something new and to approach something differently. So even if you've been doing something wrong for 5 years, the 6th year is the time to do it right. So this drive has birthed intricate support systems and algorithms that minimize error while maximizing output. Basically, my shortcomings have somehow allowed me to excel, which boggles my mind sometimes, but then sometimes I'll think about the things that I put into place, and there's support systems for me, but they also apply to a wider field and to other people, because I deal with checklists and making sure, like I try to operate like at 100% efficiency, where I have a lot of places that are like 80 to 90%, but I love that 100%, and I think it can happen through a lot of the tools I'll talk about today. So again, I want to kind of go back to say, when I say that ADHD and ASD form part of my identity, I also hope that people and I recognize this is not a limitation anymore, but is now an engine for innovation and efficiency, particularly in settings where resources are scarce. Because I have a lot of scarce resources in my brain, so I've had to maximize what I do have. And I know a lot of the organizations I work with are kind of the same way. We have very limited resources, so we really have to maximize what we do with what we have. So this is Burris Laboratory School, and it is showcased in this nostalgic photograph. It was a peculiar backdrop from my formative years. It was kind of like Harry Potter without the magic. It was a really wild school. It was on a college campus. We had a lot of freedom, and we could just walk out of class whenever we wanted to. There was no detention, no Saturday school. So it had a lot of positives in a way, but it was an interesting setting for someone like me, because while it was blessed with simply highly qualified teachers, holding advanced degrees, the institution radiated academic prowess, which was great. However, its unique learning environment, one that prized individual freedom, came with a cost. It granted me the latitude to miss classes and neglect homework, actions that would draw punitive measures in conventional settings. And at first glance, this approach seemed liberating, but it failed to instill in me the essential life skills like punctuality, diligence, and the importance of systematic learning. I graduated with a GPA of around 1.56, lacking the basic proficiency in subjects like grammar and mathematics that are foundational for academic and professional success. The leniency I experienced at Burris served as both an enabler and a disabler. It fostered independence, but also deferred the acquisition of critical skills that would be essential later in life. This formative experience laid the groundwork for the structure I would later intentionally build to excel academically and professionally. So, basically, I just want to share the tactical steps that I took to transform my academic journey. I graduated in '93, failed college a couple of times, mainly because I basically just slept through it. I didn't really go to classes or anything, because again, I hadn't built that structure in my life. I kind of skated by. I knew how to do kind of the bare minimum. I didn't really understand the practicality of starting things early, applying myself over a period of time. I mean, just a lot of the basic things I just really kind of had a lot of difficulty with. So I had, from '93 and '96, I got married, and I immediately had two stepsons that moved in with me. So all of a sudden I had a family, and I realized that I had to get serious about everything. That's when I got a job in radio. But when I got into college, I realized that I was very lacking in lots of ways. And it was embarrassing because I'm a reader. I do love to read, and I'm a knowledge person, so I have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of depth of knowledge in weird subjects like physics and I was in computer science and things like that. But it was odd, the gaping holes in some of my education. Like I mentioned grammar. I just never actually took a grammar class. So things like pronouns and verb tenses were really hard for me. Honestly, it's funny being up here speaking in front of you today. So when I was in 5th grade, my teacher encouraged me to run for class president because he knew that I cared about the other kids, and I had lots of friends. I was very outgoing with everybody. So I prepared this speech. I wrote it. I was very proud of this thing. It was really going to be a good speech, and I stood up there in front of everybody for 5 minutes, not saying a single word. I was just scared, and I got off, and I wasn't president. I've been like a silent guy. You learn, and I'm here today. I'm speaking in front of a group of amazing professionals, and it's amazing to me that I can come from there in 5th grade and be terrified to being up here, still terrified, but at least talking. That's progress. Hopefully, So again, when I'm up here, I'm just here to encourage people, and I'm trying to provide life stories so I can hopefully just empower and encourage everyone else. So what did I do? I went back to basics to conquer foundational elements that were lacking. I wasn't shy about getting help. I'm up here telling you my disabilities and my shortcomings, and it's great. I know it sounds weird, but it's great because I say this kind of stuff, and it's embarrassing at first, but then afterwards, you worry people will treat you differently, but the good people don't treat you differently in a bad way. The good people treat you in a better way. They treat you in a way that's like, oh my gosh, most people relate in some way. Either they've got someone in their life or they in their own life have things that they can relate to, and it kind of puts you on common ground in a lot of ways. life. So if you have weaknesses, if you have shortcomings in your job, whatever, you don't like doing this particular thing, or this area is hard for you, admit it, get training, get help, or go to a place that will give it to you. So, whether it was from professors or external sources, I sought out guidance that I needed. I focused on deep understanding, ensuring that I grasped material, not just memorized it. My incremental learning approach prevented the pitfalls of last-minute cramming. I also identified and addressed barriers, conducted audits to spot and eliminate what was holding me back. Finally, I aimed to beat the system. I learned the ins and outs of the academic rules better than anyone else, which led to unprecedented opportunities like graduating with a double major. These weren't just academic strategies, they were life lessons that changed the trajectory of my education. So recognizing the deficits of my initial education and myself was a catalyst for radical change. I had the privilege of attending Purdue University, a place where I could meticulously re-engineer my approach to learning. At Purdue, my efforts began to manifest tangibly. I secured a GPA of 3.28 in computer science and information systems, achieving the Dean's List honors on multiple occasions. The momentum continued as I transitioned to Indiana Wesleyan University for my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. My performance peaked, earning me a magna cum laude distinction with a 3.83 GPA. Finally, I culminated my academic trajectory at Boston University, where I earned an MS in database management and business intelligence, marking a GPA of 3.57. That program, you actually can, anything below a C doesn't count towards credit at all towards graduation, and you have to graduate with over a B. So I was a little nervous, but I was happy to do it. These aren't just sterile metrics, they're proof of the power of methodical planning and of disciplined execution. It demonstrates that with the right scaffolding and adaptive mindset, not only can one overcome initial setbacks, but you can also excel at demanding academic and professional arenas. This academic renaissance serves as a cornerstone of the competencies I have applied in tackling complex challenges across my career. So it was difficult. I mean, college is hard for everybody, school's hard for everybody, but I didn't know I had these disabilities going in, so I was like, man, why is everything so hard for me? Good question.
What kind of supports did you have at home or in the community that made it possible for you to go back to school and relearn those things that you didn't learn as a child?
Oh, that's a great question. So, what tools and supports I have, or maybe I utilized growing up? So, I really didn't have any. So, one of the things I took off there because I'll talk about traits that might be part of my autism or ADHD. But I'll be honest, I also have PTSD. So, yay, throw some other things up there. So, take what I say with a grain of salt as far as this trait I have is because of my autism. I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychiatrist. So as I start to delve into these personal things, realize that there might be some overlap, and I'm no expert, I'm just telling you my personal experience. So I was neglected a lot as a child, so being autistic and ADHD, I probably wasn't a joy to be around, you know? I was trying to jump off the wall a lot and ask a lot of questions. I'm a very curious person. So I just spent a lot of time alone. I think my parents were, they worked 2 jobs, and they went to college and everything themselves. So it was just kind of like being either stay at home. So probably like from the age of like 5 on, I was just at home by myself. So I really didn't have any support systems. I had like an encyclopedia set, so I'd read that. So I think maybe my parents would, out of necessity, find things for me. So it's funny, I was looking back to my past, and what they would do is they would buy me really complex skill set techniques like Capsella or Tinker Toys, or things that required lots of time with a kid that would, no instruments. They wouldn't give me any instruments because I would just play things like 4 hours every day for whatever. So they would give me really complex toys that kind of gained my attention, and that helped a lot. I don't know if they meant to do it. I think it was more like, hey, this will keep me they're busy, but it actually did help me. So I kind of think I stumbled into accidental supports. And then honestly, if I would have kept going to public school, I don't think I would have done very well, because I think they probably would have just not had time with me, and they probably would have just, I just don't think I was really cut out for like a public school setting. So what happened to me is I was identified in the 3rd grade as being what's called gifted, which was kind of just lucky for me. And so I got sent to that first laboratory school. And so while some of the things at the school were good at maybe not letting things come to a head in my education. They also let me hide for a long time. And I guess I really did those sports when I got out of high school. I didn't really have anything before that. I had friends, but I just had maybe teachers that cared because I was a compassionate, passionate person. But really, I just fell on the wayside until I became an adult, and I just had to learn how to do it on my own. So I honestly don't know. And I'm saying this off the cuff, so maybe I have support structures I didn't realize growing up, but I really didn't get it until I was an adult, and honestly, I'm still building them today. So I'm sorry, it's probably not a great answer, but I wish I had a more encouraging one. But honestly, it's quite kind of why I'm up here today, is because, you know, it's funny, I was thinking about this earlier. I don't come up here to just to talk to people or to, I don't know, honestly, my most grandiose thing is that I've had a hard time in life, and I just want other people to have it a little easier than I did. So that's why I'm up here talking about the support. So maybe I'll share something, maybe we'll kind of go back to that a little bit more later. But again, any other questions anytime, raise your hand, let me know. I definitely love them. So the strategies I've implemented aren't limited to academics. They can be integrated into any organizational settings. First is revisit core competencies. Like my return to basics, organizations should consistently review and upgrade their foundational capabilities. Second, encourage collaboration. There's power in collective wisdom. Make it a culture to seek and offer help. Third, promote deep understanding. Ensure your team fully grasps not only the task at hand, but the larger objectives. Fourth, adopt incremental change. Gradual adjustments can mitigate risks and lead to sustained growth. Fifth, audit and address barriers. Scrutinize your operations to identify and remove obstacles. Last but not least, know your system and beyond. This extends to understanding not just your internal systems, but also the larger ecosystem in which your organization operates. Comprehending these broader systems can uncover hidden opportunities and advantages, just like it did for me academically. So just knowing you don't have enough resources isn't enough. Why don't you have enough resources? Is it internal? Is it external? And those aren't excuses. Just because you know what they are doesn't mean you can go, well, those are the things, we're done. No, that's when you can start to address them. That's when the fun things start to happen. So, the big takeaway is that my academic journey resembles less of a straight path and more of a well-engineered roller coaster. Thanks to a self-created support system designed to manage my autism and my ADHD, which I didn't even know I had, I failed so frequently, you could say I had a PhD in trial and error. But, you see, being aware of my limitations made planning for stumbles part of my vocabulary from the get-go. Each first attempt in learning isn't an excuse, it's an opportunity for betterment. These aren't dead ends, but critical data points that feed into my continuous improvement. This extra effort, especially in grasping and excelling at basics like math and English, propels me to excel in advanced and diverse courses from calculus 2 to advanced philosophy. Every hiccup is incorporated back into my support system as a learning opportunity, which fine-tunes my approach. This discipline strategy, beginning tasks early, consistent class attendance, and active participation, equips me to navigate life's hurdles in addition to academic challenges. Failures, therefore, aren't setbacks, but they're an essential chapter in my guidebook when achieving long-term success. I think sometimes, and I speak for myself, I say things like you, I talk about all of us, I really try to talk about myself from my own personal perspective. I've avoided mistakes. I've avoided people seeing my mistakes. They're very embarrassing. I don't like it. I already told you when I get up here, I'm nervous, I'm anxious. That just seems to exacerbate, or at least I thought so. I was wrong. It turns out that knowing I make mistakes, admitting I make mistakes, and expecting myself to make mistakes makes it easier in the long run, because I can build support systems, I can do checklists, I can set reminders, I can maybe buy a $5 plugin for my website that helps me track progress. I mean, there's so many things I can do now because I've done this kind of self-evaluation, and I've been able to go, where am I, what are the difficulties I'm facing, and how can I go beyond them? So actually, I would like to take a second. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. So we are pivoting to our next session, and we're going from academia to the airwaves. So let's take a look at my 18-year stint in radio, the lessons I learned and how they can benefit you and your organization. Although WKRP in Cincinnati is a fictional place, I had the pleasure of working with talents from its real-life counterpart, WKRC. On my roster were accomplished professionals like Andy Furman, Dean Muccio, and Mike McConnell. While the legendary Pete Rose and Oscar Robertson were team members, they did grace our airwaves as distinguished guests. And for a dash of minor star power, Bill Gaither, a household name in gospel music, happens to be my third cousin, and just like my educational journey, my radio career has been a unique medley of ups and downs, where life's challenges have served as my greatest instructors. So, in any crisis situation, sometimes it's necessary to shift focus from growth to maintaining a solid foundation. Edward Albert's quote highlights the same principle. This involves ensuring basic needs are met, eating right, sleeping well, and getting daily physical and mental exercise. And nobody should laugh, because I know who has no time. But keeping these fundamentals in check serves as a lifeline, allowing us to regain stability and eventually refocus on growth. So when things get tough, always double down on the basics. They're your bedrock. I mean, think about it. If you're worried about your education and this job promotion, but you're killing yourself in some other way physically by alcohol, or you're drinking 14 bottles of gin a day or something crazy. It's like, you got to balance things out. But it's really the fundamentals you have to take care of first. But personally, you should take care of your health, and whether that be your physical health, your mental health, you need to focus on that and take care of it. And then, and I want to say this, secondary, because you need to worry about you first, then worry about your organization, and think of the same thing. Are they doing the basics right? Not all the big growth things. Are they going into a new market or a new acquisition or bigger and better? Oh, we've got a new housing project. Are you getting the fundamentals right? Because if you got fires going on, I doubt you're getting the fundamentals right. That's kind of the definition of not having the fundamentals right. If you have a lot of fires all the time. So if you got fires all the time and you're trying to expand, probably not. You're just going to expand your fire. Let's not set everybody else on fire. Let's keep that stuff maintained. Let's get the fires under control, and then let's build out something that's progressive and good for everybody, and not going to hurt them. So, for this slide, I want to share the uphill battle I faced when stepping into the operations manager role at my first radio station. So imagine walking into a place where nothing runs on time, where misinformation is the norm, and the previous leader is MIA despite promising support. That's what I walked into. The person I took over from was managing 3 jobs and dedicating only a fraction of the time needed to keep the station afloat. So from day one, I was essentially navigating through chaos without a roadmap, or as the saying goes, up a creek without a paddle. This set the stage for the monumental challenges I had to overcome to turn things around. And looking back at this period of my life, it may speak to part of my autism, because I tend to be kind of altruistic, and I tend to project that on other people. So when someone accuses me of lying, I get really confused. I'm like, don't normally lie, and why would But I find that like this particular person accusing me of lying a lot, it's probably because they tend to lie and they're projecting on me. So, in the same token, I tend to expect the best out of people a lot of times. And so I got hired in this new job. I literally never been in a radio station in my life. I I'd seen on TV. I thought they looked cool, but I got hired as an operations manager to run the thing, and I didn't know what to do. And the person that hired me, I was training me for a few weeks before they left. They told me, I've got a cell phone, the company's paying for it, I'll answer whenever you need me, I'll be here to support you for however long you need. And I believed them. And looking back, knowing how I am now, I would have been a little more, diligent. I think I would have asked more questions. I would have been as set by the side of the road and let them do their things. I believed and trusted them. So when they left, I had nothing. I had no support. They really didn't train me, and I literally just had to crack open every manual and just call every person I could to find out what we were supposed to do. It was definitely a daunting scenario. And I also, I mentioned earlier, I got married. So at this point, I had 2 stepsons living with me. We just bought a house, and I had just had our first child together. So it was to try to put in a situation where failure wasn't an option, it was definitely daunting to say the least. So, as I kind of mentioned, I want to go into a little more of the details of it. So, it was definitely chaotic. I was definitely a blank slate. I really didn't know what was going on. And in terms of like audience engagement, for example, we were in complete crisis. We were sitting at the very bottom of the local Arbitron ratings. The workload was no joke, spanning between 80 to 100 hours per week to manage it effectively. Going back to the person that trained me, what I didn't realize is what they were showing me when they were training me was the wrong way basically to do everything. It was basically the way to cover up all your tracks to make it look like you were doing the work but not actually doing the work. And I don't really work that way. When I submit things to HUD or wherever it might be, I want them to be accurate. So this meant that I took, when she was showing me initially maybe 20 hours a week to do what she did wrong, it was about 80 to 100 hours per week to do it right, which is correct, same. So on the financial side, we were in a precarious position. We needed about $10,000 a month to keep the doors open. We were taking in about $7,000 a month. And lastly, the operations were a mess. Procedures had been in place for years, but were never scrutinized for efficiency, necessity, or accuracy. These challenges, as daunting as they were, became instrumental in shaping my focus on systemization, optimization, and the critical importance of innovation. I mean, some of the times it was just asking a question like, why do I need to do this? Why? I mean, not to be rude, but why? Like, we would do invoices. We would send out invoices to all our customers. And we had a policy that we had to notarize every invoice before we sent it to a customer. All we were saying was like, we are your program. Why haven't notarized? It's sort of a legal document. There's nothing really important about this thing. When you get a notarized invoice for your phone company lately, I mean, nobody notarizes stuff like that unless it's something really important or legal. So we had maybe 30 or 40 invoices that we had to get notarized. I'd go to the bank, they offered us a free service, and they would just sit there and notarize every single thing. And I just thought, why am I wasting their time? Why am I wasting my time? And I got thinking, I wonder if other radio stations do this too. It turns out they didn't. So sometimes if you're doing something in your organization, and you've been doing it forever because that's just how we do it, you might want to find out if you really do need to do it, and if you need to do all of what you need to do, because sometimes you can be like I did, and I can find out that, oh, we didn't have to do this thing. And it saved me, I don't know, at least an hour of just going to the bank, like 2 hours total. And then, not to mention, the bank at one point changed their whole policy. They wouldn't allow free notarization anymore. They started charging me per paper. And it was all because of us, because we were doing this ridiculous thing. And once I wiped that thing out, it saved me a little more time. And the customers were actually customers. It actually helped things because they were wondering, why are we always doing these notarized things? Do we need to notarize stuff back to you? What's so important about it? And it actually confused things because it wasn't a normal kind of SOP. So identify, ask questions. Why do we do this? And don't do it in a rude way. You don't have to be like, why am I doing this? I mean, that's not a great way to ask a question, but I really want to understand this procedure better. Can you help me? I want to know the root reason we're doing this. Can I understand that so I can make sure I'm doing the best of my job? So sometimes we can ask questions in a very positive manner and then maybe eliminate things we don't have to do. At least for me, it worked really well. So I like to show this picture. I use this picture a lot for lots of things. It applies to my life in many areas. But this is me in spirit back in October 1996 in my first day of radio. Much like this golden retriever puzzle biochemistry said, I had the enthusiasm, but none of the formulas. Let's just say my time at the radio charts started with more questions than answers, and I really had no idea what I was doing, kind of like when I jumped into social services. But while our absentee owner in Michigan thought all boxes were ticked, the reality was far from it. Like I mentioned, we were out of FCC compliance. That's a big deal. You lose your license, you're done. You're lost millions of dollars, stuff like that. Risking our broadcast license and dead air was more common than songs. Programs were frequently incorrect, and relationships with local clients and listeners were eroding. It wasn't just about clocking 80 to 100-hour work weeks. It was about laser focusing on the basics to turn around the station. I had to work smart, revisit foundational elements, and automate tasks for efficiency. This comprehensive, ground-up approach was essential not just to meet expectations, but to reset them altogether. Close, continuous oversight wasn't a luxury. It was a legal and operational imperative for the station's survival and growth. Now, I will stop for a second to say that I'll talk about some of the things I did, but one of the things I really did well for myself was advocate for myself and the employees and the staff. There were multiple radio stations in our group, and basically I would talk to the owner and he would say, well, this is the way it's done at that radio station. And I'd go, well, cool, I have these people here, and they need something different. And just by being transparent and just being saying, hey, that's not good enough, we expect more here. We need petty cash, we need supplies, we need the basic fundamental things that people need to do their job. And I would advocate for that, and I would get it. But I was willing to do it. I was willing to step up to the plate and to kind of ask for these hard things, or ask hard questions, or even kind of just say, I don't know how to do this, I need the tools. And I would tell the owner of the radio station, I don't know how to do this, will you pay to train me? I mean, I'm willing to do it if you will provide me with the tools. But I had to step up and actually ask for a lot of those things to make them happen. But the key to turning the radio station around was a strategic cyclical approach, beginning with through assessments to understand where we are falling short and where opportunities lay. But it didn't stop there. Investing in education was crucial, not just for me, but for the entire team, to bridge knowledge gaps and elevate our capabilities. This allowed us to optimize operations, clearing out redundant processes, organizing critical assets, and automating for efficiency. Tracking our progress was not an afterthought. It was integral to our strategy. This framework, assess, educate, optimize, and track, didn't just improve our station's operations, it led to my promotion to manage multiple stations in a top third of the market. I kind of go back to this over and over, and you kind of hear like maybe use different terms, but you're really going to see me just kind of go into this cyclical, this assess, monitor, improve, self-reflection. It's really important to kind of ask these questions to see where you're at, see where your organization's at. And sometimes, there's not always a problem there. I might ask a question to myself, like, I don't know, did I prep enough for this thing? Let me think about it. Well, yes, I did. Okay, now I can move on to the next thing. So the answer is not always, yes, we have to improve it. Sometimes, no, this is a check mark. We're still good here. And that's fine, but it's always good to just don't ever assume that everything's working the way you think it should be. I can't tell you how many times I've fixed somebody's computer just by restarting it one time, making sure the power was on, and not assuming that the basics were taken care of, because sometimes those very basics that we think we rely on were put together by somebody else and they're not operating the way we thought they were, or even if we thought they were operating a certain way, we come to find out that something gets unplugged or an update happened or whatever. So I always try to come into something with humility, and I ask questions before I start explaining or just kind of start tossing out solutions. But don't just assume that everything you're doing is working perfectly. It's always a good idea to kind of look under the hood every once in a while to see what's really happening. So while traditional educational metrics might not have forecasted my trajectory, my career in radio paints a different picture. Over the years, I generated revenue personally over $1 million for the company, tens of millions. And this is not just a number. I'm not trying to brag. It's a testament to the power of leveraging unique skill sets and confronting challenges head on. In the radio industry, I didn't just survive, I thrived. And this milestone serves to underline that non-traditional pathways can yield significant successes. So when we talk about barriers, remember they can be springboards for innovation and prosperity. So when you find out we have a problem, that doesn't necessarily mean that you go sulk or you go put your head in the sand. You can do that for a while. I'm not going to lie and say I haven't done that in the past, but if you have a problem, it's good to tackle. It's good to eventually take care of it. If you don't know what's there, that's even worse. I know a lot of people, sometimes I'll have conversations with people and they'll just say, I don't want to talk about it. And it's like, well, that's great. I mean, it's still going to impact you. And it's not going to impact you less if you don't know about it. It's just going to hurt you and you won't know what's coming. I don't get it. Maybe that's the way my brain works. But I see that a lot in my personal life and my professional life. And it confuses me when people want to ignore problems until they can't ignore them anymore and they lose their job, their organization goes under or whatever. sticking your head in the sand is never a good strategy for long-term prosperity. So, in 18 years, we evolved from a faltering station to a robust network across multiple states. How? First, structure. I rolled out comprehensive training, policy guides, and weekly check-ins. Next, we focused on selling in the market, overtaking our main competitor. Operational efficiency was a game changer. Automation enabled us to do more, better, and faster. Financially, we didn't just survive, we thrived, increasing our monthly revenue to nearly $100,000 and breaking the $1 million annual sales mark. Now remember, I was started at this station where we were trying to hit 10,000 a month, and we were at 7,000, and now I'm doing 100,000 a month and $1 million annually. But it's not just about money, it's about operational precision. That's what I loved. We tightened our broadcast timing, nearly eliminating all errors, and each of these elements played a role in creating a finely tuned, successful operation. So, the radio stations, I like them to be within 2 seconds at the top of the hour. That was my goal. So, if anything was like, if it was something supposed to air at 4 p.m., it aired at 3:59, 56 seconds. I didn't like that. And I had automation. I could, fix those things. And so I did. And I always just try to, can I do better? And, I wasn't trying to be ridiculous. With the software and then the hardware, all it took was reading some manuals and some fine tuning, and we sounded great. And what I found out was that the listeners loved it. It wasn't that, it's interesting. We kind of think that we have to be all pie in the sky, flash in the pan, impress people and do all this kind of stuff. But, you could be driving a Lamborghini, and if you've got like 4 flat tires, and people aren't going to be very impressed. It's like, wow, you kind of great car, and you kind of messed that up, and you can't really drive it anywhere. So I think a lot of times as organizations, we have these things we're really proud of. We've got these jewels, maybe I've got the beautiful hair, but I don't, you can't tell. But but in reality, we've got these things that are kind of like either rotting or terrible, and they're fundamental things that are hindering us, and we don't want to look at them, but we need to address those things. It's better to have a crappy car with 4 tires and get you somewhere than a Lamborghini is just going to sit in the driveway. So if you're trying to get to work, one's more important than the other one. It depends on whether you're trying to be an influencer or actually accomplish something with what you have. But if you don't admit it, assess it, and monitor it, you won't really know when you're house with 4 tires unless you maybe check before you want to leave. So, in my years managing radio stations, these principles guided me. First, get the basics right. You can't scale inefficiency. Second, let data drive your decisions. Numbers don't lie, and can streamline your operations. Third, be resource smart. Use what you have in the most efficient way possible. Fourth, never stop training. An educated staff is an empowered staff. Fifth, standardize for quality. SOPs ensure that everyone is on the same page with standard operating procedures. Delivering consistent results. Lastly, make improvement a habit, not an event. Continuously evaluate and adapt. These lessons didn't just serve me in radio, they're universally applicable principles for any business. So, this studio in Cincinnati is a snapshot of my peak radio management period. I was overseeing 10 studios of 5 radio stations across 3 locations in 2 states. Each studio was a cog in a well-oiled machine, optimized for efficiency and performance, thanks to the principles that we just discussed. And in fact, I still have contacts in the computers I use, the audio, a lot of things that I created, the systems that I put in place are still being used there all these years later. Because when I did it, I did research, I tried to go for things that would last long, that would always improve, and always kind of be there self-monitoring and getting better. and those systems are still in place. And that makes me very happy to know that the things I did are still working today, even though I have been there for many, many years. So the takeaway for this section is that in radio, I began with zero experience and no full-time job history, leaving me overwhelmed and underprepared. My initial approach was to focus on what was immediately within my grasp, simple areas that I could improve, and these small steps created a snowball effect, improving overall performance and freeing up time to tackle more complex challenges. I aggressively sought education and resources, not just for myself, but for my team and stations. After an 18-year journey, I turned a daunting challenge into a success story that I proudly share today. So I have a little blast from the past for everybody. Let's talk about it here. This is my career. Back in 2011, we had a grand plans of turning my daily radio escapades into primetime TV. Not my idea. $20,000 sizzle reel was put together to pitch a show called Radio Rehab. It promised to be WKOP on steroids, or maybe just on caffeine, I don't really know. But as fate would have it, the project fizzled before a pilot episode could even take off. Let's just say I dodged a bullet there. Actually get the whole TV audience instead. I said this thing costs about $20,000. It feels like maybe about $14, but whatever. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. Audio is there. I have to skip this. It's in the slide deck. I'll pause here and let everybody know it's in the slide deck. I was hoping to show everybody this, but without audio it makes it difficult. So just FYI. Maybe we'll get it later.
But you might have to computer.
Huh?
But you might have to computer.
Well, there's no audio at all. Yeah, I can't hear it. There's nothing. I mean, the volume. Give us one shot. We'll see. I just don't want to spend too much time on something that doesn't work. It's not that pivotal. This was the most important slide. I'm just kidding. So anyway, that's me. I can ad-lib it. The basic scene is we're not supposed to have this dog in the radio station because the owner said no. And they keep bringing the dog in, which I love the dog. He's a great dog. I was told you can't bring it in. And so I'm explaining, I'm not a dog person. I just can't have a dog in the radio station. And then I'm sitting on an exercise ball because I'm trying to improve my health. And I don't know why I did this, but I said, we're a professional station, and I really tried to keep everybody on the ball here. And I didn't mean to say it. And I don't know, sometimes I say things subliminally. I don't feel it. Anyway, they thought it was funny. I didn't. So the clip's in the slide deck. Feel free to check it out. Oh yeah, I didn't pick that up as a hit series, in case you couldn't tell. Before I move to the next section, are there any questions so far? Man, I was hoping for like a 2-minute break. Look at my watch, take a drink, but no, that's all right. Okay. So, transitioning from radio to the social services sector wasn't just a career shift, it was a complete reorientation of my professional focus. But the principles that guided me in radio, data-driven decision-making, resource optimization, and continuous improvement, found a new, impactful home. Now we'll explore how these principles are not just adaptable, but critical when tackling complex social issues like homelessness. So, Einstein once said, if I were given 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes solving it. That's not an exact quote, just FYI, if you're trying to look it up, there's variations of it. I love the principle, what he was trying to express. This principle resonates strongly in the field of social services. The tendency to put out fires can often consume us, pulling focus away from identifying root causes. By dedicating substantial time to accurately define problems, we enable strategic solutions that can prevent these fires from happening to begin with. This makes our initiatives not only more effective, but also more sustainable over the long term. So before I dive into my specific experiences in the field of homelessness and how it intersects with data and organizational improvement, let's set the foundation with some stark figures and perspectives on the current state of homelessness in the United States. In this country, an alarming 1.5 million children find themselves either homeless or living in unstable conditions, often sharing space with friends and family. This isn't a niche issue, it's a pervasive crisis that requires our immediate and undivided attention. Firstly, it's important to note that we lack a unified definition of homelessness across government agencies like the Department of Education and HUD. So we do not have a unified definition of homelessness. This incongruence itself is a barrier to effective action. You can't define the problem successfully. How can you actually solve it? Now, let's dismantle some widely held myths. Homelessness isn't merely a product of substance abuse or a lack of housing. It's a complicated problem, deeply embedded in systemic or in systemic failures. People experiencing homelessness are often not failing at life, rather they're casualties of broader systems that have failed them. Inaction has a price tag. When we fail to tackle homelessness head on, we end up bearing heavier costs in emergency health care, law enforcement, and other stopgap measures. Contrary to popular opinion, addressing homelessness isn't just a moral imperative, it's an economic necessity. As we delve deeper, understand that resolving this issue necessitates a dual approach. We need target education and advocacy efforts to dispel misconceptions among policymakers and the public. Simultaneously, we must invest in effective, evidence-based solutions, such as housing-first models and comprehensive support services. Both pathways are not options, but necessities, and both require proper funding and a commitment to sustained action. If you're in the world of social services, especially addressing homelessness, you can't afford to wait. Immediate action is crucial. Start by conducting a rapid audit of your operations. Clarify your mission, daily tasks, and long-term goals. Goals. Do any organizations have time for those anymore? Allocate resources if you have them, if not, give them. And initiate staff training, because well-trained staff are more efficient and less prone to burn out. There's a lot of that going around. Concurrently, your voice needs to be heard. Advocacy isn't just shouting to a void, it's about reinforcing your actions. Think of action and advocacy as two spheres in a machine. They need to work in tandem. Your advocacy efforts should aim to magnify the effectiveness of your actions, making your strategies more sustainable and impactful in the long run. In social services, particularly in homelessness initiatives, we often find ourselves standing between two cliffs, one representing expectations and the other reality. When you're allocated $200,000 to solve a $2 million problem, you're not just falling short, you're standing on the edge of a perilous drop. This is not a simple gap, it's a systemic misalignment. It's critical to either extend our resources or scale down expectations, lest we fall into the chasm between them. I find this a lot. Many municipalities, many governments, they think that they're willing to give $45,000 to this organization. That's a lot of money. And we're going to solve homelessness. That's not nearly enough. We might need $45 million. So we need to do some education there. We need to do some, there might be some groundwork or legwork. We might need to do some research. We might need to bring in a consultant. How much is this problem actually going to cost? Do we even know? Do we know how much solving homelessness costs your community? I mean, do we have a number? Is it 50 million? Is it 500,000? 5 billion? I mean, without a number, how do we even know what we're working towards? And partially, I think part of that is, I don't know, first of all, has any community in this country solved homelessness? I don't know that any of them have, actually take that box off so we can use them as an example for the rest of the country. It's almost like we're not really expected to with what we have. I mean, I know that's weird, but it's again, expectation and reality. So are you really expected to solve homelessness with what you have? Or, and I hate to say this, but this is what I find a lot of times, a lot of communities are more willing to hide homeless people or people experiencing homelessness than to actually help them. So there might be an organization in your city that's not a very good organization, but they keep all the homeless people there and take all their money, but the city that looks the other way because the homeless people go there instead of the downtown area, which is prettier. So again, it's a hiding people solution, which is a lot cheaper than housing people solution. Well, they think it is, it's really not in the long term. But again, expectation versus reality and having some hard talks in the community. The gap between what's needed and what's spent on homelessness is more than just alarming. It's a crisis in itself. According to reports from the National Alliance on Homelessness and HUD, we should be spending between $35 and $50 billion to effectively tackle this issue. Sounds like a lot. Sounds too much. I know. Just wait. However, we're only allocating around $6 billion. Still sounds like a lot. I don't make that much money. That's not just falling short. It's essentially setting ourselves up for systemic failure. But again, man, we're thinking 35 to 50 billion. There's no way. I mean, we can't ask for that kind of money. That'd be ridiculous, right? It's terrible. 773 billion is the United States fiscal year budget for the military in 2023. So, we might have the money, you know. The imbalance in our national spending underscores a stark disconnection between professed values and real-world priorities. In fiscal year 2023, we allocated $773 billion to military spending, including $13 to $16 billion for the controversial F-35 program. So every year, $13 to $16 billion for just that F-35 program. Can we just lose one of those? It's going real well. Meanwhile, oh, by the way, that total program, I think, is projected to cost 1.7, I think it was trillion. So $1.7 trillion for a jet, we might be able to solve homelessness. So meanwhile, our social services and social organizations get their scraps. Our country spends more on discretionary items like gym memberships, diet products, lottery tickets, luxury cars than we do on addressing homelessness. Just consider this. The tobacco industry alone has garnered over $800 billion in profits, while we've only collected $160 billion from them since 1998 when the settlement happened for big tobacco. So think about it. They paid $160 billion, which is a lot of money, but they still made $800 billion in profits. So how can we not solve homelessness? How do we not have enough money for it? I don't really understand. But it's a clear example of fiscal negligence and misplaced focus. This isn't just a gap, it's a systemic failure that calls for immediate realignment of priorities. It also highlights the need for vigilant monitoring and accountability in decision making, especially at the political level. This is where advocacy, education, and transparency can make a genuine, impactful change. Imagine trying to fight a wildfire with a garden hose and then being told you have to outperform other firefighters to get more water. That's essentially the situation we're facing. With an estimated 580,000 homeless individuals in the United States and only about 350 organizations tasked with addressing this crisis, the math does not add up. Not only are we shortchanged by $24 to $44 billion annually to solve this problem annually, but these organizations are also pitted against each other in a competition for the scant resources available. It's not just an uphill battle, it's like climbing a mountain with weights on your feet and a goat and rocks, and I can't imagine what else, because it's so hard, especially when you're doing the work, it's so hard. So, in the realm of social services, scarcity of resources has a cascading impact that goes far beyond mere financial limitations. We face issues like unequal service allocation, which particularly harms the most vulnerable. Staff are stretched thin, resulting in burnout and a revolving door of employees. This instability inevitably compromises the quality of care that we can provide. Add to this a lack of proper monitoring tools, and we get an operational environment ripe for waste and inefficiency. Even the data we rely on to make informed decisions can become unreliable. And let's not forget, when you're constantly putting out fires long-term planning becomes a secondary concern, putting the organization on shaky ground for the future. In essence, resource scarcity doesn't just create one problem, it multiplies challenges across every facet of the operation. So in the world of social services, the pay disparity is not just a talking point, it's a gaping chasm, like we talked about before. A lot of chasms, expectation to reality, salaries, expectations. So I took a salary cut from over $100,000 a year to $38,000 while my responsibilities quadrupled, all because I switched from the private to the public sector. And it's not just me. There's a $4.8 billion deficit in what social service employees should be earning. And while I did get a significant raise after a private sector offer came in, I was shocked to find that even a part-time coworker received the same salary without even asking. This highlights not only the inconsistency, but also the urgent need for financial restructuring in the sector. In the high-pressure environment of social services, it's like constantly firefighting, with some days literally inflamed. We've had actual fires. Resources are scarce, staff is stretched thin, and the system is broken. But it's not the fault of the dedicated workers who are doing their best against overwhelming odds. It's really important. The issue is systemic, being caught in an endless cycle of short-term problem solving. We rarely find time to actually examine and understand the problem at its core. This creates a Sisyphean loop where we're forever dealing with the same issues without ever making systemic improvements. So in just 5 years, I went from data analyst to chief technology officer of the entire continuum of care. And now I'm CEO of my own company, and I serve as a board member at the Charlotte County Homeless Coalition, where I originally began the journey. I'd also like to give a shout out to a fellow board member here, Sherry Thornton is also here, so that's really cool. It's great to be able to, it's so cool to be back in the organization I started at and to be able to have hopefully positive influences. The thing about me though is you get me involved with something, I almost want to dig in too far. So what I tend to do, you hear me talk about, like I'll try to understand problems, I'll start asking questions. I don't necessarily do that from like the get-go. If someone's giving me good information or they're training me, I'll stop and take that. So I don't think you always have to question everything. It's good to sometimes get into a place, get adjusted, and then see if changes need to happen. You don't think that I'm like, oh yeah, anywhere you go, just push through like a Kool-Aid man and just change everything. And you might be lucky. You might be the best organization in the entire world, and you might have a lot to learn from them. I'm not saying that every place you go is going to be hard, but the tendency is systemically, because we are hard-strapped for resources, we're seeing the same types of problems crop up in almost every organization, nonprofit throughout the entire country. So, but how did this happen? How did I go from being a data analyst at one of my own company and being a board member on the Homeless Coalition and speaking at this conference? It's kind of it's been a crazy ride, and sometimes it's ups and downs to say the least. But when I entered the social services organization, it was plagued by data inconsistencies, inefficiencies, and a lack of best practices. So the first order of business was to fix data integrity. I implemented field help tips right into our software and provided database permissions. Basically what that did was rather than just asking us a question that maybe people didn't understand the context to, I would put the guidance into the document. So it might be a longer form in our system, but people wouldn't have to go research to find out what I was actually asking and what we were looking for. So if it was something like approximate date homeless began or something like that, it would just be like, hey, where did they sleep last night? You don't have to go look at HUD regulations and all this other wacky stuff. It's like, oh, chronically homeless is basically this, or blah, blah, blah. So just little things like that. I know that I need guidance, so I started providing guidance for other people, and I found that not only did it help me, they benefited as well. So some of the support structures I developed for myself, I wanted to apply to others, and they seem to appreciate it a lot of times. Because if it makes it easy for me, it's going to make it easy for everybody, I figure. But the first order of business I did break down to was data integrity. Because I was a data analyst, I figured data is probably pretty important. If the data is wrong, I'm going to be wrong, so I need to make sure the data is right. So I said I implemented field help tips and revised database permissions. And to elevate competence, I initiated agency rock stars and instituted monthly training. So basically, I would go to each organization and I would talk to people there. I'd try to understand their process. Like, it was one thing knowing something on paper or like in the system, like they did intakes and this and that, but I wanted to see what it looked like, when they first walked in, what questions were they asked, the person had written on a computer, on a tablet, on a phone. I just wanted to know. So I got a little bit better understanding. And then I made relationships. I just got to talking to people, and I just asked them for help. And this is your organization. Would you be my agency rock star? And would you help me out with data quality when I needed? And I never was like, you're in trouble, I'm telling you. I was always like, when they would do stuff for me, I would lavish praise. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know, you went above and beyond. We're all hard worked and overworked. But I just felt like that if I could have one person in each organization, and I would help them with stuff, so it was a two-way street. But building those relationships really helped me a lot, especially the agencies. So I standardized data collection, saving time and improving accuracy. So assessments that would ask, how many bikes do you own, which is the color of your favorite shoe, or whatever. That was weird on these assessments, and I'm like, we need to ask them like, where did they sleep last night? Are they safe? I mean, more important questions than like, how many backpacks do they have at home? I mean, I don't know. And so I was just carrying out the assessments, the very basics. I wanted to get right where I could, and then build on top of that. And I questioned everything because I would go to HUD and I look at the very basics, and I would say, we're adopting the basics, and maybe we can build onto that. And I got a little bit of pushback, but I was like, hey, you don't want to do what HUD wants to do? That seems weird. And then, I would kind of use HUD as my big stick, I guess. I rewrote operational policies for consistent effectiveness. On the tech route, we migrated from an outdated Exchange server to Google G Suite, saving us about $15,000 per year. We also transitioned to Office 365 at a cost of just, I think it was cheaper than this. It says $12 per user per day, but I was like $3 or $5. Making us more efficient without breaking the bank. To amplify our reach and modernize operations, I updated our website and automated social media postings. So I would basically do one post, it would go into 5 social media services, and it saved me so much time. The essence of this transformation is step-by-step. Prioritized approach. Small victories created the momentum needed to tackle larger, more complex issues. This iterative process, emphasizing both immediate fixes and long-term solutions, mirrors the strategies I employed successfully in previous roles in academia and radio. So maybe I would take something that might seem not a high priority thing for business, but it would take me a lot of time to do it. And so if I could just automate that process and save me hours per week or whatever, then those are extra hours I can do other things. And so you just have to kind of monitor and kind of look at it, okay, is this a time-intensive thing? Like social media, that doesn't seem like a big deal. It's part of my responsibility. My big priorities were federal reporting, conducting the PID, blah, 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 but I also had to do social media posting. Now, the PID, those kind of things, maybe I couldn't make it more effective or more efficient, I guess. But the other side, I could take the social media posts and I could do maybe one post, maybe have AI help me, and then have a plugin that posts to 6 different places. And then instead of being a 4-hour thing, this now becomes a 30-minute thing. And it doesn't seem like a big deal. That's 3.5 hours that I've now saved, but I could maybe spend on something more important like the PIT or whatever. So don't always think about being more efficient with just your high priority items. Think about things that are time consuming as well. So building on the comprehensive improvements we made, be it in data integrity, operational efficiency, or community engagement, my organization positioned itself as a reliable authority on data. We were actually brought in to do a testing website for COVID. We built all kinds of extra, let's just say, tools that the community needed, and we were just asked to do that because we were known as a data leader, and it's because we got the basics right, and we built something, and we had transparency, we had dashboards out in the community, and people knew what we were about. Okay. So, address minor issues before they compound into major problems. I initially networked with 2 peers, but expanded into 1,100 strong national network focused on leveraging data and tech to combat homelessness. I have regular monthly trainings and brief weekly staff meetings I believe are crucial for organizational alignment and rapid problem solving. Don't shy away from system overhauls if they're worth the investment. Tackle such projects perhaps annually during downtime, clearly defining organizational goals, both long-term and short-term. Use checklists and keep your policies and procedures updated to avoid repetitive mistakes. The adage, measure twice, cut once, is invaluable. Examine problems deeply to prevent wasted efforts. If you're understaffed, allocate resources judiciously. Use one team member to advocate for additional funding and personnel so the majority can focus on getting the job done efficiently. So the takeaway here is really universal tool action. Utilize data-driven performance monitoring to maximize existing resources and simultaneously push for the resources you need, achieving both immediate efficiency and long-term systemic change. Okay. So again, the same measurement is the first step that leads to control and eventually to improvement, holds particular relevance in the context of data visualization and analytics. So, in data analysis, particularly in visualizing homelessness data, there are four pivotal stages: measurement, understanding, control, and improvement. Think of measurement as gathering raw materials. You can't build anything if you don't have the basics. Next comes understanding. Dashboards are your assembly line. They convert those raw numbers into graphical forms, making the data not just accessible, but understandable. The third stage is control. Once you have a visual representation, you arm decision makers with data that isn't just nice to look at, but actionable. Finally, we have improvement. It's an ongoing cycle of refining strategies and processes. This stage is critical because resting on your laurels in data analysis can quickly lead to obsolescence. Each of these stages is interlinked. Skipping one could lead to gaps in your analytical framework, potentially resulting in poor decisions and stagnation in your improvement efforts. So consider the APR. This is an ugly report, and this is what it looks like coming out of the Homeless Management Information System. But it could look like this. Visually, it's completely different, and there's a lot more data that can be consumed quickly in the dashboard. This is an example of a very complicated visualization, showing what happens when somebody exits the system. It'll show where they were, was it homeless or institutional, what kind of project they went into, and then where they ultimately went. And this is only part of the visualization. It's actually a full thing that goes across the entire screen. But the importance is to be creative and kind of look at your data in ways that will quickly give you information that maybe you wouldn't be able to get just from reading a very long, boring report. So we might start with a KPI like this, it just has a number. And we might expand that out. And now we're looking at that number, but maybe we're looking at that same number over time. So now I can see per month, I can see changes, I can see dips, I can see valleys. I have a better idea of what my organization is going through over the course of a year, rather than just saying 5,000 or 5.91K. I can say, oh, well, actually in January, there are 3,000 or close to 4,000. Or maybe in another month, there might be a dip, it might go way down or way up, and I can quickly visually see where this change is happening. Now, this updated version of the KPI takes it a step farther. It not only tracks the number of people served, but also details the people exiting and remaining within the system, along with their average stay duration. With the incorporation of visual elements and styling, we've packed multiple layers of information into a compact visualization. This enables us to convey the comprehensive picture of system dynamics all within a small space. Again, data visualization, in a report with a bunch of numbers, you may not see a giant spike like that. And this is actually showing inflow and outflow out of a homeless system. But data visualization, this saves time. I can see this, I know there's a problem much quicker than just looking at the number in a report. And I'm going to kind of wrap this up for time, because I know we're going to be wrapping up. So all these are in the notes, and I have all kind of explanations and everything. But I really think it's important to track key metrics. So if you're worried about vulnerable populations in your community, you better track that somehow. So, chronically homeless, children and veterans, or really vulnerable populations. If you can't see whether they're more in your system or less in your system, how do you know whether you're really doing a job, especially with KPIs like housing or return to homelessness. This is data quality. This is a way to visualize data quality to know that you have problems. It's awesome. I had one employee who was not trained very well, making all kinds of data quality errors. I was able to visualize it because I had access to the database, and I found the user, retrained them, and we fixed all the data quality issues. And I didn't have to wait a year to do it. It happened so quick, I just was able to see it, boom, spike and fixed. So visualization is a time saver. You can also do actual analysis. This is an example of a racial equity dashboard for Chattanooga. And you can actually go beyond just showing numbers. You can do total analysis, like for example, disparities between two races. And you can see there's a red triangle in the top left-hand corner. That only comes on if there's a disparity between the rates between these two races. So visualizations and dashboards can also allow for actual analytics that you don't have to necessarily have someone on staff to do all the time. They can use a tool that's already been built. And there are lots of tools out there, not just like what I do. HUD builds tools, other organizations. There's all kinds of tools out there to help us do what we're doing. So in this situation, what we had a disparity of people that were Black, African American, they were being housed at a higher rate than their other counterparts. What it actually turned out being was they were being housed to staying with friends and family permanently, and then were becoming homeless again because they weren't really being housed. It was just a way to kind of like get a positive destination out of the system. So what we were able to do through some analysis was to find out that no, this is a common mistake that communities made, is that they will exit somebody to a positive destination that doesn't hurt their overall system performance measures, but then will actually ding them when it comes to returns to homelessness. So again, data visualization can be a very quick way to glean very amazing and deep insights. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to wrap up because what I did is the last section, I know I mentioned AI, I actually have this all through the presentation slides, and I walk you through how to use AI. And the important thing is, it's a time saver, it's great. I use it to help you write this presentation. You can use it for things like mission statements, vision statements, the basic building blocks of your organization. You need a 30-second copy for a commercial on a radio station, use AI to ChatGPT. You can talk to me afterwards, I'll walk you through some stuff. But real quick, I just honestly, I don't like keeping people too long. We're going to 10:45, right? I just want to double check that. I don't want to go too long. And I just want to say thank you, everybody. It's been amazing. I kind of took a little longer than I wanted to on some sections. But I think overall, the important thing is, monitor what you're doing, pay attention, try to get the fundamentals right, because you're doing incredibly important work, and I guarantee you're overworked and underpaid. And so advocate for yourself, but also try to be as efficient as you can so that you're not just burning yourself out, because it is so hard, and I just appreciate everybody in the room. Thank you for coming, and thank